got your pen with you, so perhaps you can just jot down the points so we can try and get to them. Mutswaye Seroe saying, is the corruption counter unit independent, or it is also part of Home Affairs, or is it? If it is part, then we can expect no results. That's just one of the comments that's coming through. Princess is saying, I've been waiting for a birth certificate of my son for 8 months now for changing the surname. How much longer am I going to be having to wait for this? So that's one of the problems that's talking about birth certificates. Why is it taking so long? Sipiwe Khobase again bringing up the issue of cost. Since I don't have the 140 rand for a smart card, can I just keep my green ID book? I don't mind carrying it. That's what Sipiwe says to us as well. And then another final question that I can read to you here is Tolani saying, who approves the application for refugee status? Is it Home Affairs staff or is it the minister herself? There you go. That's a question. Perhaps you can get to those. But also from our side, let's take a look, and Minister, I urge you to take a look as well at this clip about people's concerns regarding allegations of bribery at the department.
If I come 5 times, 6 times, I cannot get the paper here. Because here in Home Affairs, arrangement is not a good. And somebody also here is taking money outside for the queue, and even inside is a lot of problem here.
I've been extending it for 5 times now, and for the 6th time things are not happening. I can see there's a lot of bribery going on.
1,000. If you are overstaying, you pay 1,000. After that, if you are coming here station, they don't know a station. What can I do? I don't get money. I'm working at domestic work. What can I do?
The problem is here in Home Affairs is management is not working nicely. You understand? People are standing here for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, not get anything. You understand? Where's management is not coming out, ask people what is going on. You understand? I just want, I don't know, South African government to help us.
All right, so lots and lots of concerned citizens out there that are having a very frustrating time. Minister, would you like to respond to some of these allegations?
All right, Minister, so I've just jotted down some of the things that they were saying, and one of the things that came through is, and I think these are the ones seeking refuge, asylum status.
Those were not citizens.
Yeah, and they're saying that that process is taking an inordinate amount of time and that there's huge delays. That's part of the problem there.
Yeah. Peter, one of the challenges that we must refer to is the fact that the majority of asylum seekers in South Africa are from SADC. This is very peculiar. We don't have a civil conflict in the SADC region. And essentially, what is happening is because of international law and the requirement that if a person says, I have come to seek asylum, you must actually process that application. You can't turn them away in terms of international law and court rulings in South Africa. This is why I said we have one of the most liberal pieces of legislation in this regard and practices. Now, people use asylum seeking as a means of entering South Africa as economic migrants. People coming from countries with peace, where there are regular elections, where there's democracy, where you're able to conduct a business, are all coming to South Africa, and when they arrive at Home Affairs offices, they say they're asylum seekers because they know they must be given an asylum seeker permit.
How do they get in? Are they getting at the border? They're coming in as visitors, or what is it?
They enter as visitors, and then when they're in the country, they claim asylum. A number enter illegally, especially from some of our neighboring states. But a number do present as visitors. And once they're here, they change and claim they're asylum seekers.
Isn't that grounds to just dismiss the application?
This is why we have a process through our refugee status determination officers, as well as our Standing Committee for Refugee Affairs, which makes the final determination as to whether this is an application of merit or not. But people continue to possess the asylum seeker permit until the process is complete. Then when SCRA, the Standing Committee on Refugee Affairs, has made a decision, we're then able either to deport you or you have the requisite documents for legal stay in South Africa.
All right. You don't make the decision yourself.
No. It's a body established by law.
Okay.
I'd never be able to do anything else if I were dealing with this.
The other issue that's come through is corruption again. And in fact, I spoke to someone who's seeking asylum, and he reckons that the queues are so long that to get inside the building, you have to pay a policeman 100 rand. And that these guys are collecting anywhere between 15, 20K a day, just getting people inside the building and jumping the queues. This seems to be quite rife, and that is happening. How are we not managing this?
Well, we've firstly begun to address it because we've sent our investigators. I've asked our investigators to be in the queues so that we identify any official that is demanding such payment. I've also put in place a better management of the processing of applicants. So in many of the offices, you'll see we don't have the queues that were shown here. I don't know whether this footage is footage you took 2 years ago or last week.
Monday.
So it would be interesting to look at that.
It was Monday.
We have improved our processes, but as I said, the numbers we're dealing with are huge. So one of the things I believe we have to do, and we will be recommending this to government, we need to develop a policy that separates genuine asylum seekers from economic migrants. And that means we must have a policy that addresses SADC economic migrants, because they present as the largest number of asylum seekers, and essentially they want to come and work here for a temporary period and return home. And we should have a visa for SADC economic migrants. That's the new policy shift I believe we need to do. It will end the clogging up of the asylum and refugee system and allow us then to deal with the genuine applicants.
Okay, all right, let's go to table number 12. In fact, I think this question has been answered. Jean-Pierre Lukumba, you were going to ask how far you are speeding up the service for asylum seekers and refugees in terms of ID travel document issuing. So we've dealt with that answer,
we must improve in that regard, Peter. I am concerned that we are taking far too long with the issuing of refugee ID documents. We also will have a smart card, by the way, for refugees. But that process I'm not happy with at all, and we are looking at improving it.
All right. Let's go to Vusi Kunene, table 20.
Could I also on cost say that you are able to continue to hold the green ID book for the next 5 years until we've dealt with the full population that should hold an ID card or document.
So it's not
so it will
compulsory
continue
for 5
to
years.
be of legal tender for the next few years. So you can save up your 140 rand.
All right. So so I can ignore an invitation until it becomes compulsory.
If you cannot at that moment come forward.
All right. Table 20, Vusi Kunene.
Morning, Peter. Morning, everybody here. Morning, Mister.
Yes.
My question is a very simple question, but difficult one. I just wanted to know what is the rationale to start ID application or smart card application at the age of 16? Because that is where the problem is. Because now if you look at the age of 0 from birth to age of 16, with a birth certificate, that is where we have the problem, because it's more prone to fraudulent acts. So my problem is that by the time you do a smart card application or an ID application, you already capturing information that is sometimes not a proper information. So my problem is being that, what is it that makes us to say, in South Africa, you need to start to have an ID application or smart card application at the age of 16. What is that we are doing between the age of 0 to 16 to actually stop that particular information which is incorrect?
Well, one of our major objectives, Vusi, And a big program in the department is to ensure that every birth in our country is registered. Unfortunately, many children in our country are not registered. So what we've got to do is have everyone on the national population register. And 16 is the age at which you're beginning to approach majority, which is 18. You're also completing your secondary schooling phase, and thus it is a reasonable age at which to require you to hold an ID document. Most countries use 16 as the entry point, but the entry point to the National Population Register is birth. And so all persons applying should already be registered in South Africa.
Okay, we're going to take another clip of voices to get a sense again of what some of the concerns are of people on the street. And it was on the same day, it was Monday, Tuesday, when this was filmed. Let's hear what they had to say.
I'm from Pakistan. I'm since here last year. Don't know which queue must I join. And when we are going to get inside, the security guy beat me just for folding wrong queue.
I sleep here outside. Then the raining is coming. We stay here. Then we stay with the child. When we take so a long time, we're gonna get paid 1,000 pounds.
All right, I think that's your Marabastad office, and one of the issues that's been raised have been, because these queues are so long, the conditions outside are not great, and in fact there's not even proper toilets that people can access because they can't get inside the building.
Yeah.
And people are, relieving themselves in the bushes and things like that, which can't be healthy.
Yes, we've been in discussion with the Metro Council of Tshwane in order to seek their assistance in improving facilities there. It's not an ideal building. We're not happy with it. I also think it's wrong for South Africa to process asylum seekers in the country, in a city so deep in the country. I believe we should be having reception and processing facilities at points of entry. And this is a direction in which we're moving, to create appropriate facilities for the processing of asylum applications at our ports of entry.
All right. Look, there are a lot of people that are definitely abusing the system. I think that's quite clear.
There's massive abuse. People are complaining that they have to pay fines. I think some of them actually would just say that, I'm afraid. But secondly, there's massive human trafficking of individuals and abuse by transport people who bring people in, are paid money, and they dump them just beyond the border post.
But
so there's massive abuse in immigration.
And I would imagine, though, that the real cases are getting lost in all of these, the abuse, and the delays, I think, is the big issue there. The guy that I spoke to said that it's not so much that they don't have the capacity. He says that he feels that these guys are working at such a slow pace, almost as if they're on a go slow.
Well, there are inefficiencies and inadequacies among the officials. Clearly, we're aware of this, and this is the reason we want to improve. There are also massive backlogs. I think the system wasn't ready for the numbers that came in the early 2000s. So there's still quite a significant backlog there. And at times, I think officials are overwhelmed. We also have people who don't necessarily understand international law and thus are not always able to process the applications as they should. We've got to improve on the application process. There are many inadequacies that are administrative failings which we must address.
The racial profiling, because you never see white people being harassed by immigration officials and police officers and so on and so forth, and it tends to be I mean, I know one young man whose father spent, I think, 10 years on Robben Island. He's dark-skinned, and he spent some of his life in the UK, so he didn't have the accent. He was dark-skinned, and he was taken to Lindela, and he was trying to explain, my dad is XYZ, and he was a struggle hero, but he was picked up and taken away. How do we make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen, where people are being profiled either by the way they look, the way they sound, and it seems to be black people more than any other race group?
Let me ask the officials who are involved with immigration to address this. Mudiri?
Okay. Or if you could just stand up and just say your name as well first, so that the public could know who you are.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name's Mudiri Matthews. I'm the Chief Director for Immigration Inspectorate. I look after Lindela. There isn't racial profiling as such. What immigration officers do is they do inspections and they detain individuals without documentation that they come across. But if you were to look at the statistics of detainees within Lindela, you'll find that there are a number of different nationalities. We've got Chinese, Indian, we have, there's UK nationals. Prior to Christmas, we did deport a German national. There are various nationalities that we do, that have come from outside of Africa. So it's not a case that we actually go and specifically look for Africans, even though they are in the main, probably the majority of the persons that are found to be illegal immigrants. But that is also as a result of a lot of them being able to access the country.
On the side of the road, you see the police harassing black people. They're not going to stop white people at the mall and say, can I check your immigration status?
It can be, basically in the Act allows police officer or an immigration officer to ask anybody their status. Now, police are doing a patrolling function where if they stop a person for a traffic offense or for any other type of offense, they would ask the person for for status. That's just part of what they would do on their patrols. Now, at any roadblocks that police conduct, where they would stop any persons that are driving, they would ask them for their identity documents. So it's not a case that it's police are specifically going out and looking for singling out African nationals or people of darker complexions. It's just something that does happen, but a lot of attention is given to that, even though it's not necessarily the case that they have a policy to do so.
It's also the way it's profiled in the media. When it occurs, I mean, errors have occurred, clearly, but when it occurs, it is treated as though it's 1,000 incidents. And people, when you ask them, they're able to name one or two children or persons of the nature you've referred to. But in the main, the persons that are in Lindela are actually illegal immigrants.
Okay. Table 12, Nkosana Mabena. Table number 12.
Good morning, Minister, and everybody present. Minister, my question is, my first question is the one regarding the permit that has been given to the Zimbabweans. Now that is coming to expire, what is the process that is going to be followed for them in order to access living in the country? Because we get a lot of questions regarding that. What will be the next step? And the second question is regarding the refugee status, the stamp that Home Affairs give to the refugees, which is they stamp them for 6 months, while it is supposed to be 4 years, probably. So we get a lot of clients coming to our office regarding that. Can you at least maybe give us an explanation regarding those two?
All right, just before you sit down, are you Zimbabwean yourself?
No, I'm a South African.
Okay,
Your profile.
I work.
You were profiling.
No. I'm asking because he spoke specifically about Zimbabweans, and I was hoping that you could give me a bit more light on the
the issue, Peter, is because I work for African Diaspora Forum, so I work in that industry a lot.
Okay,
yes.
all right, okay.
Thank you.
The Director General is going to answer these questions.
Okay.
On the stamp, 6 months, 4 years, and the Zimbabwe dispensation.
Thanks very much, Minister, and morning to everyone. With regard to the Zimbabweans, you'll recall that it was a dispensation which we're trying to make sure that we're legalizing people who are in our country. That was an attempt. And we had to have a special process which was going to take for a period of 4 years. However, with a clear policy direction that was not only for Zimbabweans, it was for even other countries, but we'll approach the cabinet at the end to say how we'll be taking the process forward. So we're aware that that process is coming to an end in December 2014. So now, by this time, we'll be approaching now the cabinet to take a decision, and then people will be informed accordingly. Then with regard to the refugee status, a refugee status gives you a period of about 4 years. That is your refugee status which we are giving to you, and then after that it will be reviewed based on that question which was asked, that the circumstances in the countries will be changing. Because in South Africa, what we are interested in is for people to live in their countries peacefully. So if now it is a 6 month, I'm not sure we are confusing it with the extensions when somebody is still applying. But as the Minister have explained that we've got a SCRA, we've got a Refugee Appeals Board. So once your case is being looked at, we give you an extension of 2 months or an extension of 3 months or an extension of 6 months, because the idea is to give you a decision. Thanks.
Okay. DG, before you sit down, maybe you can answer Maxwell Pirikisi's question, who says, why are we required to carry our children's birth certificates when crossing the Beitbridge border post when both parents are with the children and all have their passports? He traveled apparently to Zimbabwe over Christmas, and they both have South African passports, but were nearly refused passage because they didn't carry the birth certificates of the children.
Well, I think Minister have touched on the issue of human trafficking. In South Africa, that's why now you have to have your child with a passport. We don't take the details of your child and just write in the parent's passport. That is for a reason. And also in terms of the Children's Act, if we have to travel with the child, we need the consent of the both parents. That is to protect children. So if you go through a border post and we can't just look at the face and say the child which you are going with is your child. But now with the birth certificate, because in the birth certificate there is a record, we've got your passport number, and then in the so we're able to ascertain that this is the child who belongs to you. Okay. So that is the reason.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed, DG.
I think we would have to look at whether parents should be carrying birth certificates. I'm not sure about the law in this regard, and I really would want to look at it. I think if the children's passports are with the parents, both of them with their children, I cannot understand why additional proof of a birth certificate is required. So I really would like to look at the Act in this regard.
Okay. Table 10, JJ Makama.
Thank you, Peter. My question is concerning citizenship. In terms of the international law, a person gains citizenship in the place of his birth. Now, you find that in places like Winterfeld, there are people who have been in the country from Mozambique in the 70s when there was this Frelimo war. Now, the third generation that is still residing there, they are unable to be recognized as citizens, even if they are born in this country. I would like the minister to explain to that.
So does birth guarantee you citizenship?
Not in all countries, no. Citizenship is linked to parentage and their citizenship. However, what our law does allow, the Citizenship Act, is if you're born of foreign parents, when you attain majority, should you wish to acquire South African citizenship, you would have to apply. And South Africa would grant you citizenship. But generally, citizenship follows parent. It doesn't follow domicile.
Right, okay. Table, it says table 17, Carl Dibetse, I think.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
Carl Dibetse, that's my name.
Right.
Allow me to say the minister is great and amazing. Peter, I'm from the Office of the Inspector General of Intelligence. Ambassador Khadebe, she's seated here on my right. Among some of her duties, well, in her oversight work, she goes from cities, citadels, villages, and towns. And she also visits, Minister, some of the towns in the ports of entry. And she hears stories. People saying, you know what, the government, if you want to be rich and a lot of salary, you should work for SARS at the ports of entry, for immigration, and for the police. Those people are well paid. And she hears the other story, that is not the case. Those people are involved in corruption on a large scale. Minister did touch on it. The point is, or proposal to say, Minister, I think it's an opportune time. Can't we, whilst Immigration Act or legislation is being looked into, can we put it as a part of that act to say, people in those areas, immigration, it should be a condition of employment that there should be probity checks on them as a proactive measure. It's one line of defense against corruption or another battle to fight corruption, not necessarily to look at them and give Ntate a lot of work whilst they are inside, to keep them away before they enter. And maybe other things, to do things like lifestyle audit and polygraph test on more frequent intervals, like more than the other departments. That's the one question from my leader, Ambassador Khadebe, seated here on my right.
Okay, well, you're a great spokesperson, and we're going to put the
last one?
No. You took such a long time with that one that you've taken the time. Thank you. So, it's a great place to work. SARS, immigration at the border.
Our big headache is corruption. Fraud is, of course, a real worry, but corrupt officials are really the worst thing you can have in any department that you are deployed to. It's something we're fighting every day. And we are arresting people. And as I said, we, take
What about polygraph tests? That'll clean it up overnight.
Well, I raised polygraph tests with our legal head, and Advocate Erasmus told me it was a bit of a slippery slope. But I have said we need to look at lifestyle audits, and we're certainly looking at that. You have officials with very luxurious residential property who are at a very junior level in the department. So we think that's something we should do, but we would want to do it for all of us in the department. So we're hoping with the DG that we could establish consensus that in our department we will lead the way in this particular regard.
Capacity is a big issue for you, clearly, as well. And I know that you had problems with mobile officers some time ago.
Yes.
Has that been fixed? And also, can't you have like these asylum questions dealt with at the border so that people don't even get to travel to Pretoria?
Well, I think our technology people must really say something about how technology can assist us, both with the mobile facilities as well as improved security at ports of entry. So I'm going to ask Sello Makao, our DDG for Information Systems, to talk to this matter briefly.
Thank you very much. My name is Sello Makao. I think what we have done with the mobile trucks is we have implemented technology that you'll find in the offices. So if you apply for a document from the trucks, which we call the mobile trucks, you will have the same kind of technology that you have in the offices. Now we implement in the live capture for the smart ID card, for example, and that project will be rolled out to those trucks as well. In terms of the ports of entry, we have a comprehensive border management solution where we also going to integrate all the technologies in the ports of entry together with our central core system, so that when you cross over from one port of entry, we can see the information on real time basis across all the ports of entry. We have done that with about 45 ports of entry, but we still remain with about 13 that we need to complete to make sure that we have seamless information integration across the country.
Minister, there's I don't know whether it's a perception, whether it's real or not, but there seems to be people saying that crime has increased because of immigrants coming into the country. Is there a definitive proof on that? Because we hear stories of the creatures coming into this country, the woman who was involved with the bombing in Kenya. Is there a link between illegal immigration and crime?
Not throughout, but certainly there are cases. And of course, Peter, we must repeat that it is us, the citizens, who are allowing abuse of our country. Because these people are able to get fraudulent documents because they bribe South Africans working in our offices. So there is that, certainly. And I think South Africa needs to look far more carefully at the degree to which its laws are perhaps far too open for the security threats that are posed to our country. So some of the technology solutions we're looking at are going to tighten security. They're going to annoy people because we're going to take your fingerprints as you arrive at our Tambo International. We'll photograph you, and you'll agree as you agree in New York, because we must enhance security. We will make it difficult for you to acquire some of our long-term permits, but we'll be efficient at issuing them. But you're not going to get them easily. So we are going to tighten up, and it is going to annoy people, but we're going to do it to improve the security of South Africa.
All right, Minister, unfortunately we've run out of time. We're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us, the initiatives that your department is taking, and I look forward to my birthday to get a new smart ID card. But Minister of Home Affairs, Ms. Naledi Pandor, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And that's where we're going to leave it for today, and we're going to take you back to Johannesburg. But for us, thank you. This is where we're going to leave it for today. And there's a number of New Age business briefings coming up in the future. And don't forget, we've got the State of the Nation address coming up, I think on the 14th, as when we're going to do the actual TNA. So if you're in Cape Town, be a part of that. And let's explore what's happening with our country, what the President will have said in his speech, speech. But watch the press, New Age newspaper for the upcoming breakfast, and you can be a part of those as well. And as usual, we'll broadcast them here on Morning Live SABC 2 and Channel 404. Right, that's me and the team here in Fourways. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye. Leanne?
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very, very much. Very informative TNA that we had this morning. I hope you enjoyed it. That was our Minister of Home Affairs, Naledi Pandor. And remember that